ask the question again? Let me just make sure. Okay,
Absolutely.
so wait. Let me get this right. Okay, so we know that Deathwing used many of the elements as well as some of the magics in order to create different types of dragons, and the Drakthir, for example, is a collection of all of the dragon powers or the dragon aspect flights. But what if some of the other higher magics, so we're not talking about the elemental magics, but rather the higher magics, what if they were to create their own dragons? What would the result of that be? Is that correct?
Yeah, effectively, say if the Naru didn't just stop with uplifting the Draenei and creating the Light Forged, that they actually like gained a clutch of proto-drake eggs or gained a clutch of dragon eggs and infused it with the light. What do you think the resulting basically the resulting consequences would be?
Yeah.
And to kind of build on that, because I see where he's going with this, the key thing with Deathwing and his experimentations, as well as the Twilight Cult, is the fact that everything Deathwing and the Twilight Cults experimented on was already altered by the presence of arcane magic. So it had an essence of order in it. They weren't messing with proto-drakes, they were messing with already ordered, uplifted dragons.
Yeah.
So maybe we just take it from there. What happens if we add a little bit of another force in there to something that's already been touched by arcane?
Alright, so it's not so much just arcane. I will say, though, I think it could work for proto-dragons the same way. The only problem you would run into with proto-drakes is the fact that not all proto-drakes are very intelligent. And so that creates a problem right there. If you want an army to do things, you'll find it very difficult to do that with proto-dragons, because the majority of proto-dragons are feral. They're primal. They don't really think past what is required now. So the end result of most proto-drakes would literally just be a new type of dragon that shoots light beams in order to kill its targets or its prey, rather than, you know, a fire breath or whatever the case might be. The more interesting part, I think, of that question comes in the why haven't any of the other higher magics really ever tried it. We know that foul proto-drakes existed. We saw some of them during Wrath of Lich King, I believe. But that was a result of literally just the proto-drakes being close to the foul, right? Being in sort of in proximity to foul. Was it undead? Same thing, right? The proto-drakes were close to the undeath and therefore took on elements of undeath, so to speak. Cosmic, Prime Sub, really appreciate that, bro. Welcome to the most degenerate chat on Twitch. Very much appreciate you, fam. So the thing is, it wouldn't take much. You don't even need to plan for it. All you need is a magic source and proto-drakes close enough to it, and they will just automatically start accepting this into their bodies, because their bodies seem to very heavily or easily react to whatever magic source is plentiful around them. As for
yeah, they
why...
do.
Sorry, yeah?
Oh, I was going to say they do seem fairly malleable. I mean,
Yeah.
As far as we know, well, maybe there's some pain to it, but they seem to be easier at absorbing stuff than, say, the Dreadlords did when they tried to take in the Fel.
Yeah. No, I would say they are... I would say they're basically like sponges. Whatever you put next to them. Now, I think that's heightened on the egg side of things, because introducing that magic before birth even will obviously create a more pure flight of whatever magic you're trying to wield. The only reason I can think of why that has never actually happened would be proximity. While the light is active on Azeroth, the light as a magic source isn't found on Azeroth. There's no font of magic. There's very few places on Azeroth that one would say is completely corrupted by light. You know, like a place where the light is gathered so heavily that it effectively like bleeds light magic into everything. If you go to the proto-drakes in Wrath of the Lich King, even I believe TBC, but I might be wrong on this one. If you go to those proto-drake stories, what you find there is that the area where they lived became corrupted. And it was literally bleeding rivers of foul and rivers of undeath and undeath magic. And this is what absorbed, what got absorbed. Whereas the light that we do see on Azeroth is simply wielded by users of the light. It's not a coalescing of the magic of light, so to speak. And that might not necessarily impact dragons in the same way. It does appear as if they need to be close to the magic source, and the magic source has to be abundant. It can't just be a user of light. So if a dragon stood next to Anduin for long enough, it's not automatically then going to start absorbing the light that Anduin radiates, right? Unless, of course, he stood next to Anduin a lot, in which case maybe. But I would say that's probably the only reason we haven't really seen that, is just the fact that there is not as much of it present on Azeroth. And also perhaps even more notably, I don't think a lot of the beings in the universe, a lot of the high magics, view dragons as a very important element to their plans. If you take, for example, the Foul, the Burning Legion arrived on Azeroth and they had plans of conquering Azeroth. Dragons, or a plan to conquer as many dragons as possible and build a dragon army, would have taken too long. You know, that's a long game. You're here, you're being attacked by everyone else. Maybe you'll try to come up with a couple of foul proto-drakes, but it's not going to be anything near approximating an army or an invading force of dragons. Whereas the elemental magics of Azeroth has had literally since the dawn of time to impact and influence these proto-dragons, and it's not obvious to me that this influence of elemental magics is done on purpose. It doesn't appear to be, at least. It appears to be completely by accident. The elemental forces are just everywhere, and the dragons happen to exist within those elemental forces, and therefore absorb it. Now, as to the question, what would happen if indeed it did happen, I'm going to borrow completely here from sort of inductions, because I don't have any deductions to go by. But it does appear as if dragons absorb magic and then amplify it. So if you were to have a dragonflight that's been infested with the light, there's every reason to believe that those dragons would be incredibly powerful as light wielders. Their ability to wield the light would be incredible. I base this purely on really the primal incarnates, because they're the purest form of sort of absorbent species that we have. Iridacron, for example, is considered to be stupidly powerful, right? Just absolutely beyond powerful. Now, to be clear, the elemental lords are powerful as well, but I've never seen the fear displayed towards the primal lords or the elemental lords that I see displayed towards Iridacron, which would suggest that once proto-dragons have accepted a type of magic, they become incredibly proficient at it. And they can wield it with quite a lot of devastation, so to speak. Right? That's the only thing I can say about this, because I'm not even sure, if I'm going to be honest, I'm not even sure if a lot of the higher magics can influence dragons. I think it would depend on, one, the purity of the magic being used, and perhaps also even the chaotic nature of it. Remember, the proto-drakes were born inside the elemental planes. We know that the elemental planes basically have been a place of chaos almost since its inception, you know? So it might also just be that these dragons don't really absorb, because we don't see proto-drakes that have absorbed order magic naturally. the only proto-drakes we see that have absorbed other magic, it was forced upon them. Well, I say forced, they did choose it, but it was done on purpose, very specifically by the Titans, and that led to the Dragon Aspects. We do not see it as a natural occurrence. So it might be that the dragons don't so much showcase high magics, but rather collections of the elemental magics of which the high magics are comprised. Does that make sense?
Yeah, what I want to add to that is just a couple things. After we see the proto-drakes being uplifted and we get the aspects in their flights, I don't think we ever witness any proto-dragon eggs being tended to by the dragonflights and, like, turned into dragons.
No.
It's just the eggs that the dragonflights themselves produce. Like,
Yeah.
the initial ordering that the Titans did was the only time proto-dragons were infused. And then the dragonflights propagated their flights afterward.
Oh yeah, I don't think the dragon aspects would even have the ability to turn a proto-drake into a normal dragon. I don't think that's technology that they have available.
No, I think it was just the whole thing about the arcane waters, and that was just put into place to continue propagating their flights after they did the original uplifting. And then the last bit I wanted to point at is it's not lost on me that Iridikron, the incarnate of Earth, is seen as the most dangerous of the incarnates.
Oh yeah.
Because we had Deathwing, or Neltharion, the Earth Warder, who turned into Deathwing. There seems to be a common thread between wielding the powers of the Earth and potentially being stronger than the rest of your kin, and possibly going crazy.
Well, yeah, you're legitimately wielding the power of Azeroth, right? Which is considered to be one of the most powerful titans in existence, if indeed she is a titan. We know that she's more powerful than any of the other titans. That's what they told Sargeras. So, wielding that power, you're not just connected to the earth. It's not like you just have the power of the mountains. You are literally blessed with the power of Azeroth herself. This is sort of made true for shamans as well, with the storyline at the oh my god, what was the book called? Oh fuck, I can't remember. Was it Dawn of the Aspects? It may actually, yeah. It was right in the beginning of Dawn of the Aspects, where Thrall and Ysera have a conversation, and Ysera basically explains to Thrall that Azeroth chose you, Azeroth speaks through you, so that connection is incredibly powerful. So that does make sense, in all fairness. But yeah, that's a pretty interesting question all around, so whoever asked it, thank you very much, I really appreciate that.